The air in Meridian Prime was thick with the scent of truffle oil and entitlement when Maya stepped inside. Her navy blazer, tailored to perfection, might as well have been invisible. The hostess, a blonde named Brittany, with a smile sharper than the steak knives, didn't even glance at the open-table confirmation on Maya's phone. "Sorry we don't serve your kind here," she said, tearing the reservation printout with a flick of her wrist. The shreds fluttered to the floor like confetti at a bad joke. Around them, the clatter of silverware died. A dozen eyes, some curious others already filming, locked onto Maya. She didn't flinch. Just tapped one manicured finger against her Hermes bag, a silent metronome for the absurdity unfolding. Brittany leaned in, faux concern dripping like syrup. "Maybe try McDonald's." The dining room, half empty with its pristine white tables, seemed to hold its breath. Maya's smile was ice. "Standards," she repeated, letting the word hang. "Funny. I've sat at tables where men in cheaper suits than this blazer gambled with millions. Yet here you are judging the menu before tasting the chef." A murmur rippled through the room. At table 9, food influencer Zara Martinez discreetly angled her phone. Her live stream title flashed "Racism at Meridian Prime Live." Viewers poured in. Then came Derek, the assistant manager, with his polished shoes and unpolished prejudice. His gaze crawled over Maya's skin before settling on her face. "There a problem?" he asked, though his stance blocking the entrance, arms folded, suggested he'd already decided. Maya checked her Cartier. 8:02. "My reservation was for 8. Derek's laugh was a dry cough. "System error. We're fully booked." Behind him, 6 empty tables gleamed under chandeliers. Zara's camera caught it all the way. Brittany's smirk faltered when Maya's phone buzzed. The caller ID lit up like a spotlight. Goldman Sachs Private Wealth. "Oh, that'll be my team," Maya said, sweetly tapping the screen. "They handle my standards like which restaurants deserve lawsuits." For the first time, Derek's confidence cracked. The live stream hit 500 viewers. Somewhere in the back, a waiter dropped a plate. The sound was perfect punctuation. Then, plot twist, an older white couple at the bar stood up. "We're leaving," the man announced, tossing his napkin onto his untouched Wagyu. "Turns out we don't fit the atmosphere either." His wife shot Brittany a look that could curdle cream. As they walked out, others followed, chairs scraping like a slow clap. Maya didn't move. She just watched Derek sweat, her smile now a blade. Funny how standards change when the world's watching. The door chimed again. This time it was a reporter. The tension in Meridian Prime had reached a boiling point. Brittany's stage whisper, "This isn't a place for food stamps," hung in the air like a foul odor. Maya didn't blink. Instead, she adjusted the strap of her handbag, letting the edge of her black Amex Centurion card glint under the chandelier light. A silent mic drop. The diners nearby gasped. One woman at table 12 actually choked on her champagne. Derek, sweating through his cheap dress shirt, took a step closer, his breath hot with arrogance. "Our guests expect a certain environment." He spat as if Maya were a stain on the pristine white tablecloths. The subtext was clear. "People like you don't belong here." Maya's phone buzzed again. Goldman Sachs, persistent, but she ignored it. Her gaze locked on Derek. 9 minutes, she said coolly. Then, new twist, the restaurant's head chef, a burly man named Marco, with tattoos snaking up his arms, emerged from the kitchen. He'd been watching the scene unfold through the service window. "Derek," he barked, wiping his hands on his apron, "you're making this place look like a damn circus." The kitchen staff, all Hispanic and black, had gathered behind him, their expressions a mix of fury and solidarity. One dishwasher, a kid, no older than 19, muttered, "This is why I hate this job." Brittany rolled her eyes. "Oh, please, Marco, stick to your sauces." But the damage was done. The diners were murmuring some even standing to leave. A well-dressed black couple at table 8 threw their napkins down and walked out without a word, their unfinished $200 steaks abandoned. Maya's phone pinged. She glanced at the screen ETA 1 minute and allowed herself a small, dangerous smile. Tick-tock Derek. Just then, the restaurant's doors swung open with a dramatic flourish. A tall man in a tailored suit strode in, flanked by 2 associates holding leather-bound portfolios. "Maya," he said, voice booming. "Sorry I'm late. Traffic from the airport was hell." The room froze. It was Michael Carter, CEO of one of the largest hospitality groups in the country and Meridian Prime's actual owner. Derek turned ghost-white. "Mr. Carter, save it." Michael cut him off, his eyes scanning the room before landing on Maya. "You good?" Maya finally let her smile reach her eyes. "Better now." Michael turned to Derek, his voice low and lethal. "Pack your desk. You're done." The silence that followed was deafening. Brittany's mouth hung open. Zara's live stream hit 10,000 viewers. And somewhere in the back, Carlos the busboy started clapping. Slowly. Then the entire kitchen staff joined in. The sound was like thunder. The hashtag Meridian Prime Racism was now trending in the top 5 for New York City. Zara's live stream had surpassed 2,000 viewers, her phone screen a blur of furious comments and shares. Across the dining room, diners whispered behind their hands, some discreetly recording, others sliding their chairs back as if to distance themselves from the scene. Maya remained motionless, her posture regal, her expression unreadable. Richard Whitmore's polished facade cracked just slightly as he glanced at the Escalade idling outside. The tinted windows gave nothing away but the license plate. PRVT1 sent a jolt of unease through him. He cleared his throat, adjusting his cuffs. "Ma'am, I assure you there's been a mistake," he said, his voice slick with practiced diplomacy. "But if you continue to make a scene, we'll have no choice but to involve the authorities." Maya didn't flinch. 5 minutes. She said, her voice calm but edged with something dangerous. Then, new twist, the restaurant's sommelier, a middle-aged white man with a salt and pepper beard, stepped forward. "Richard," he said, his voice trembling with suppressed anger. "I've worked here for 10 years. This isn't who we are." He unfastened his apron and tossed it onto the nearest table. "I quit." A stunned silence followed. One of the waiters, a young black man named Jamal, immediately followed suit, yanking off his tie and throwing it on the floor. "Yeah, me too," he muttered. The kitchen staff, still hovering in the doorway, erupted into applause. Richard's face turned puce. "You're all fired," he hissed. Maya's phone buzzed. She didn't need to look. The Escalade's doors opened and 3 figures stepped out, Michael Carter, the CEO, a sharply dressed woman with a briefcase, Maya's lawyer, and a uniformed police lieutenant. The diners gasped. The lieutenant, a no-nonsense black woman, strode in, first her badge glinting under the lights. "Lieutenant Daniels, NYPD," she announced. "We've received multiple complaints about discriminatory practices at this establishment." She turned to Richard. "Care to explain?" Richard's mouth opened, then closed. Derek took a step back, bumping into the hostess stand. Brittany's smirk had vanished. Maya finally moved, stepping forward to meet the lieutenant. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice carrying across the silent room. "I believe Meridian Prime has some explaining to do, starting with why they refused to honor my reservation and why they thought they could get away with it." The lieutenant nodded, pulling out a notepad. "We'll get to the bottom of this. Outside, news vans were already pulling up their satellite antennas, rising like exclamation points. The story was about to go viral. And Maya, she allowed herself one small, satisfied smile. Justice, she thought, tasted better than any five-star meal. The tension in Meridian Prime had reached its breaking point. Mike Torres moved forward, his hand now gripping his baton, while Carlos hesitated, his fingers twitching near his radio. Maya didn't back down. Instead, she locked eyes with Carlos, her voice cutting through the charged silence. "Officer Santos, look around. Is this really the side of history you want to be on?" Carlos swallowed hard. His gaze flickered to the live stream on Zara's phone, now at 2,500 viewers, then to the elderly couple's abandoned table, the half-finished $300 wine bottle glinting under the lights. He took a shaky step back. Richard's face darkened. "Mike, do your damn job." Mike lunged forward, but before he could lay a hand on Maya, the restaurant's front doors burst open. A team of 6 people marched in, 3 in sharp business suits, 2 uniformed officers with NYPD Anti-Discrimination Unit patches, and a woman holding a microphone with Channel 7 News emblazoned on the side. The lead officer, a tall black woman with a no-nonsense expression, held up a badge. "Lieutenant Vasquez, we've received multiple reports of racial discrimination at this establishment." She turned to Richard. "You're under investigation." Richard's mouth fell open. "This is a misunderstanding." Save it for the cameras," the Channel 7 reporter interrupted, shoving her mic forward. "Viewers are demanding answers, and we'd love to hear yours." Then, new twist of voice rang out from the back of the restaurant. "I'll give you an answer." Everyone turned. It was Marco, the head chef, storming out of the kitchen with his entire staff behind him. He ripped off his chef's coat and threw it at Richard's feet. "I've had enough of this place treating people like garbage. We all have." The kitchen staff erupted in agreement, some shouting expletives, others clapping. One dishwasher, Latina woman in her 50s, stepped forward, tears in her eyes. "I've worked here for 12 years, she said, voice trembling. "I've seen this happen too many times." "No more." Maya, still standing tall, checked her watch. Right on time. The suited woman from her team stepped forward, handing Richard a thick envelope. "This is a lawsuit on behalf of Ms. Carter for racial discrimination, defamation, and emotional distress. Expect another from the city." Richard's hands shook as he took it. The NYPD officers moved in their radios, crackling with updates. Outside, more news vans were arriving, their lights flooding the sidewalk. Maya finally turned to leave, but not before pausing beside Brittany, who had shrunk behind the hostess stand. "Funny how fast standards change when the world is watching," she murmured. Then, with the cameras rolling and the staff cheering, she walked out, not as someone forced to leave, but as the woman who had just brought Meridian Prime to its knees. Zara's live stream hit 10,000 viewers. The headline was already writing itself. The evening air crackled with tension as Maya accepted the leather portfolio from James Morrison. Inside, the documents bore the official seal of the New York State Supreme Court and the bold letterhead of Goldman Sachs Private Equity. She didn't need to glance at them. Every clause, every figure was seared into her memory. Back inside, Richard's sneer faltered as he watched through the window. The lawyer's presence, the Escalade's darkened windows, the way Maya stood with the calm of a storm about to break. None of it fit the narrative he'd constructed in his head. What the hell is going on? He muttered, his voice barely audible over the din of the celebrating staff. Then new twist the restaurant's landline rang. Brittany, still grinning from her victory, picked up. "Meridian Prime, how may I—" Her face drained of color. "Yes, sir. Right away, sir." She hung up her hands, trembling. "Richard, that was corporate. They said to check the news. Derek fumbled for his phone. A CNN alert blared across the screen. Breaking: Goldman Sachs acquires Meridian Prime parent company in surprise takeover. All staff to be reviewed immediately. The blood left Richard's face. No, that's impossible. Outside, Maya turned to James. Call the team. I want every employee file on my desk by midnight, especially Whitmore's. Her voice was ice. And notify the press we're holding a conference at 9 a.m., new management, new standards. Inside, chaos erupted. Servers whispered. The sommelier dropped a glass. Zara's live stream, now at 50,000 viewers, captured the exact moment Richard stumbled back against the hostess stand, his legs giving out. Brittany's voice was a shrill panic. What does this mean for us? Maya didn't need to answer. The Escalade's rear window rolled down just enough to reveal Michael Carter, CEO of the newly acquired parent company, staring directly at Richard with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Then, with a final glance at her watch, Maya slid into the car. The door shut with a quiet click. The engine purred. And as the Escalade pulled away, the last thing Richard saw was Maya's hand, manicured steady, holding up a single sheet of paper against the window. His termination letter. Zara's phone screen flashed with one final comment before the stream ended. Game. Set. Checkmate. The air in Meridian Prime turned to stone as James's words sank in. Richard's hands trembled, his polished facade crumbling like week-old bread. This is some kind of joke. He stammered, reaching for the tablet as if the digital signatures might smear under his fingers. Maya didn't blink. The joke, she said softly, was thinking you could treat people like disposable napkins and never face consequences. Then you'd twist the kitchen doors swung open with a bang. Marco emerged, holding a bubbling skillet, the scent of garlic and justice filling the air. Chef's special, he announced, slamming it onto the hostess stand. Freshly served karma. The staff erupted, not in protest, but in cheers. One busboy started chanting, "Maya, Maya," until the whole dining room took it up. Zara's live stream hit 100K viewers as Richard made his final mistake. "You'll regret this," he snarled, jabbing the finger at Maya. "I have connections." Had, James corrected, tapping his tablet. A new document appeared, a list of every discriminatory complaint ever swept under Meridian Prime's Persian rugs, now forwarded to the EEOC. "Your connections just got subpoenas." Brittany burst into tears. Derek backed toward the exit. But the real masterpiece came when the elderly couple from Table 6 returned holding 2 to-go bags from McDonald's. "We brought dinner for the new owner," the man said, handing them to Maya with a wink. As security escorted Richard out the same guards who'd tried to remove Maya minutes earlier, James leaned in. "One last thing, the rebrand? What should we call it?" Maya surveyed the room. The stunned diners, the weeping Brittany, the staff's hopeful faces. She plucked a rosemary sprig from Marco's skillet. "Reservation required." Outside, the Channel 7 reporter thrust her mic at Richard. "Any comment for viewers about your sudden career change?" The camera caught it all the way his toupee skewed as he ducked into a taxi, the single fry stuck to his shoe, and Maya's silhouette in the window raising a glass of that abandoned $300 wine, as the staff's cheers echoed into the New York night. Zara's final frame. A close-up of the skillet now being passed around like a victory torch. The caption read, "Best dish served cold." The silence in Meridian Prime was so thick you could hear a champagne cork pop across town. Maya let the weight of her words settle like fine dust on Richard's tailored suit. His collar seemed to tighten around his neck as he stared at the Goldman Sachs account, balance enough zeros to buy his dignity 10 times over, and still have change left for the wine list. Then, new twist, the front doors swung open again. A delivery man in a crisp uniform entered, carrying an enormous floral arrangement bursting with white lilies. "Delivery for the new owner," he announced, setting it beside Brittany's wilted ego. The card read, "Congratulations on your acquisition. The Goldman Sachs team." The lilies scent mixed with the lingering stench of Richard's desperation. Brittany, now reduced to a human puddle of regret, squeaked out, I can explain. No need," Maya said, plucking a lily from the arrangement. She tucked it behind Carlos's ear, the guard who'd hesitated when ordered to remove her. "Your new head of security deserves flowers." The staff erupted in applause. Even the sous chef who'd been scowling all night cracked a smile. James cleared his throat. "There's one more item." He produced a single sheet of paper, the restaurant's liquor license. Effective immediately, Meridian Prime will no longer serve the 1945 Chateau Mouton Rothschild, Richard, reserved for special clients. He handed it to Marco. "Tonight, the kitchen staff drinks first." The roar from the back of house shook the crystal glasses. Richard made a final pathetic lunge for the license, but Derek, now realizing which way the wind blew, grabbed his arm. Richard, maybe time to go." As Richard was escorted out by his own former employees, Maya turned to the remaining diners. "Your meals are on the house tonight. Consider it an apology and an invitation." She gestured to Zara, whose phone was now held aloft by 3 servers for the perfect shot. "The world's watching. Let's show them how real hospitality looks." The last image viewers saw before the stream ended Maya at the hostess stand, the same spot where her reservation had been torn, now signing a first edition of Setting the Table for a Starstruck Line Cook. The caption wrote itself, "From rejected to revered in 30 minutes flat." Outside, the Channel 7 news team intercepted Richard at the curb. His final words to camera, "I'll be speaking to Maya before slipping on a discarded McDonald's fry and landing squarely in the gutter." Poetic justice served at precisely 8:45 p.m. The applause in Meridian Prime had barely faded when Maya raised her hand not for silence but to snap her fingers. The kitchen doors burst open as servers streamed out carrying trays of champagne flutes and Marco's famous truffle arancini. "First round's on the new management," she announced, plucking a glass from the tray. The diners erupted in cheers, some standing to toast her. Then, new twist, the maitre d' station phone rang. Brittany, still hovering near the exit like a ghost of her former self, instinctively reached for it before catching herself. Maya answered instead. "Meridian Prime. Yes, we're honoring all existing reservations." She paused, locking eyes with Richard. "Especially the 8:00 p.m. for Carter." Richard's knees buckled. He gripped a chair for support as the final piece clicked into place, Maya Carter. Not just a patron. Not just the new owner. The namesake partner of Carter and Pierce Venture Capital, the silent backer of half the high-end restaurants in Manhattan. James leaned in, murmuring just loud enough for Richard to hear. "Funny how standards look different when the person you insulted turns out to own the building." Across the room, Zara's live stream hit 500,000 views. The top comment, "Black Excellence just bought the table and the whole damn restaurant." Maya handed her champagne to Carlos, now standing taller in his new role. "First order of business, change the dress code. No more no sneakers policies. My guests wear what makes them comfortable." The staff cheered again. As Richard was escorted out by security, his own former team now reporting to Carlos, the elderly couple from Table 6 reappeared this time with a dozen friends in tow. "We canceled our charity gala's catering contract," the woman announced. "We'd rather spend $50,000 right here." Maya's smile was radiant. "Perfect. We'll name a dessert after you." She turned to James, nodding toward the kitchen. Now, let's go thank the staff properly. I hear Marco makes a life-changing creme brulee. The last shot viewers saw before Zara ended the stream. The restaurant's vintage neon sign flickering out and a new one lighting up in its place. Reservations required all guests welcome. And underneath, in smaller letters, yes, even you, Brittany. The private dining room hummed with electricity as Maya let the financial reports speak for themselves. The screen displayed a damning graph. Meridian Prime's dwindling revenue plotted against the explosive growth of inclusive competitors downtown. A server gasped when she saw the numbers. Even the sommelier's practiced poker face cracked. Then, new twist-the-doors swung open to reveal Marco carrying a silver platter. Not with food, but with a stack of envelopes. "Resignations," he announced, dropping them on the table with a thud. "From every back-of-house employee. Or at least they were resignations." He grinned. "Now they're requests for transfer to Maya Hospitality Group properties." Richard made a choked noise. "You can't poach my entire staff." Your staff?" Maya arched an eyebrow. She tapped the screen, pulling up an email chain from the Hicks family dated 3 weeks prior. "Subject concerning management practices." She read aloud. "Richard's team reports morale at historic lows. Multiple discrimination complaints filed with HR." She looked up. "Tell me again whose staff they are." James added fuel to the fire. "Per the acquisition terms, all employment contracts are void. We're offering positions to those aligned with our values." He nodded to Carlos, who stood guard at the door, now wearing a headset and a confidence boost. "Starting with security upgrades to ensure all guests feel safe." A young hostess, one who'd been silent all night, suddenly spoke up. I want to stay." Her voice shook, but grew stronger. "I never agreed with how things were run." 2 more staff members stepped forward, then 5, then the entire front-of-house team. Maya's smile was triumphant. "Welcome to the new Meridian Prime." She turned to Richard, now slumped in a chair like a deflated souffle. "As for you, your 30 minutes start now. Carlos will escort you to collect your things." She paused. "And do leave the keys to the wine cellar. We're uncorking the special reserve for the staff tonight." Outside, the Channel 7 news crew had multiplied their cameras trained on the restaurant's facade. The ticker at the bottom of the screen read, "Break-in high-end restaurant sold after viral discrimination incident. New owner promises overhaul." Zara still lived to 750K viewers, panned to the kitchen staff dancing in the alley, their aprons waving like victory flags. The final comment, before she signed off, "Turns out the most exclusive ingredient was accountability all along." And as the clock struck 8:30 p.m., Maya raised a glass of Richard's prized Bordeaux to the room, not in triumph, but in promise. "To new beginnings," she toasted. The clink of crystal echoed through what was no longer a temple of exclusion but a house of second chances. Somewhere in the distance, a McDonald's bag tumbled down the sidewalk, carried by the wind of change. The silence in the private dining room was so absolute you could hear the ice melting in Richard's abandoned scotch. Maya let the weight of the financial report settle like a judge's gavel before turning to the trembling Derek. "Standard procedures." She slid a single sheet across the table, a screenshot of Meridian Prime's actual employee handbook. The highlighted section read, "All guests shall be treated with equal dignity regardless of appearance." Derek's mouth worked like a beached fish. Richard finally found his voice a hoarse whisper. "You're destroying 12 years of my life's work." Maya didn't blink. "No, Richard. You did that every time you turned away a black doctor or an Asian investor because they didn't fit the atmosphere." She tapped the financials again. The only thing being destroyed tonight is your delusion that bigotry is good business. Then new twist the restaurant's back door burst open. A woman in chef's whites stormed in her face, flushed with fury. You lying sons of... She slammed a stack of time-stamped reservation logs on the table. I kept copies of every turned-away minority booking for 3 years. The staff recoiled as if she'd thrown a grenade. Maya recognized her instantly. Elena Torres, the sous chef Richard had fired 6 months earlier for attitude problems. The logs were damning. Page after page of crossed-out names with notes like, "Doesn't match client profile," or simply "no" in Richard's handwriting. James whistled low. That's not just discrimination. That's evidence. Richard made a desperate lunge for the documents, but Carlos blocked him with one outstretched arm, his first official act as head of security. "Time's up, Mr. Whitmore." As the former managers were escorted out, Derek whimpering about his mortgage, Richard screaming about lawyers, Maya turned to Elena. "Your old job's waiting, with a 40% raise." The staff erupted in cheers, but Maya wasn't done. She pulled out her phone and tapped a contact. Goldman Sachs execute Phase 2. Outside, Channel 7's cameras captured the moment Richard tripped over the curb, just as a digital billboard across the street flickered to life. Now, under new management, Meridian Prime, a Maya Hospitality Group property. The tagline, "Reservations required, dignity provided." And in the restaurant's window, backlit like a Renaissance painting, Maya stood raising a glass of Richard's rarest burgundy, toasting the diverse kitchen staff, already brainstorming their first new menu item, Justice Tartare, served cold. The tension in the room reached a fever pitch as Maya's words hung in the air. Richard's face twisted in fury, but before he could respond, the sound of shattering glass cut through the silence. Every head turned toward the bar area, where Marco stood over a broken bottle of 1945 Chateau Mouton Rothschild, the same wine Richard had reserved for special clients. Whoops. Marco deadpanned, crunching the shards under his boot. Guess we'll have to serve something everyone can enjoy. The kitchen staff erupted in laughter, their solidarity a stark contrast to Richard's crumbling authority. Maya seized the moment. "Let me show you what you could have built," she said, swiping to a new slide. The screen displayed projections Meridian Prime's potential $7 annual revenue with inclusive policies, side by side with Richard's actual 3.9 net mariners. The difference, 3.1 nanometers, flashed in bold red. "This isn't destruction, Richard. This is correction." Then new twist the front doors burst open again. A delegation from the mayor's office strode in, led by Deputy Commissioner Rodriguez. "Miss Carter," she announced, "the city would like to discuss making Meridian Prime the flagship for our new inclusive hospitality initiative." She shot Richard a withering look. "We've been aware of this establishment's issues for some time." Richard's knees actually buckled. He gripped a chair as Maya shook Rodriguez's hand. "We'd be honored, in fact." She gestured to Elena, who was still clutching her damning reservation logs. "Our sous chef has documentation that might interest your civil rights task force." As Rodriguez took the files, Brittany made a last-ditch appeal. "You're ruining our lives over one bad night." Maya turned slowly. "No, Brittany. You ruined yours over 12 years of bad choices." She nodded to Carlos, who ushered the former employees toward the exit with quiet efficiency. Outside, the crowd had swelled protesters with boycott racism signs, curious foodies drawn by the live stream, and even a group of black chefs in their whites holding a banner. "We reserve the right to dine anywhere." Maya stepped into the spotlight, addressing them all. "Starting tomorrow, Meridian Prime becomes Prime Collective, where every guest is valued and every reservation is honored. She turned to Marco. "Chef, let's open the doors early. First round of drinks is on the house." As the crowd cheered, the final shot of Zara's live stream captured Richard's silhouette slinking down the alley past the dumpster, where his prized wine list now resided next to a very familiar McDonald's bag. The caption: "The only thing being canceled tonight is discrimination." The rebirth of Prime Collective was nothing short of spectacular. As Maya followed Kesha through the dining room, she noticed the subtle but powerful changes, the walls now adorned with rotating art from local Black and Latino creators, the menu's description of wine pairings written in both English and Spanish, even the host stand's new height-adjustable monitor for wheelchair users. Then, new twist, a familiar face appeared at table 12. The elderly white couple who'd walked out that infamous night now, beaming as they shared creme brulee with a young Black family. The man raised his glass to Maya. "Best damn redemption arc we've ever seen." Carlos, standing taller in his tailored suit, murmured into his earpiece before turning to Maya. "You've got to see the kitchen." What awaited her was more beautiful than any Michelin star. Marco and his team now, 60% people of color working in harmonious chaos. The new hire, a transgender line cook from Queens, was teaching the staff how to make jerk-spiced arancini. "Customer request from table 7. Marco explained, wiping his brow. Said it reminded them of their honeymoon in Jamaica. As Maya took her seat, Kesha presented a wine list no longer segregated by special reserve nonsense, but organized by flavor profiles with the sommelier's note. Good taste has no color. Outside, the line stretched around the block. News vans had been replaced by food bloggers. And on the sidewalk, a familiar Golden Arches bag tumbled by until a busboy, the same one who'd started the clapping weeks earlier, scooped it up and tossed it in the compost bin. The final shot. Maya's first bite of Marco's new signature dish, Unity Paella, as Zara's updated livestream title flashed. From racist ruins to NYC's most inclusive kitchen. The sweet taste of justice. The hum of Prime Collective's dining room wrapped around Richard like a living indictment. The clinking glasses, the bursts of laughter in half a dozen languages, the scent of Marco's new Haitian-spiced short ribs mingling with the aroma of fresh rosemary bread. His fingers trembled around the whiskey glass as he stared at Maya's business card. Then, new twist, the kitchen doors swung open and out walked Brittany, now in a server's uniform, balancing 3 desserts with practiced ease. She froze when she saw Richard, color rising in her cheeks. "I took the retraining program," she mumbled before hurrying to table 12 with Mrs. Rodriguez's birthday flan. Richard's breath hitched. The last domino had fallen. Maya didn't gloat. She simply nodded to Carlos, who materialized with a check presenter. "Complimentary per new policy," he said, sliding it toward Richard. Inside, instead of a bill, was a handwritten note from the kitchen staff. "Try the jerk chicken. You might learn something." As Maya walked away, her phone buzzed again, this time with a photo from Zara. The viral influencer was back this time, hosting a Bon Appetit segment called Restaurants That Get It Right. The camera panned to show every table packed, the wine flowing, and Kesha greeting a group of drag queens in full glam like the VIPs they were. Richard stood abruptly, leaving his drink half-finished. But at the door, he paused, turning back for one last look at what he'd failed to build. What he saw stopped him cold. The elderly white couple from that first night now sharing a bottle of champagne with the Black family from table 12. Marco high-fiving the transgender line cook over a perfect souffle. And Maya, once an unwanted guest, holding court at the chef's counter, where diners of every color waited eagerly for her famous restaurant turnaround stories. The business card stayed on the table. But as Richard stepped into the night, something made him slip it into his pocket. Somewhere in the distance, the sounds of the New York carried on the wind a subway musician's saxophone, the clatter of diverse silverware, and the unmistakable sound of glass ceilings shattering in kitchens across the city. The final shot. Prime Collective's neon sign flickering to life as the moon rose, its glow catching the tear on Richard's cheek as he walked away, not with bitterness, but with the dawning realization that excellence had never been about exclusion. It was about making room. The soft glow of Prime Collective's Edison bulbs cast warmth over Maya's family reunion, her grandmother's weathered hands clasping her niece's, her uncle debating wine pairings in Mandarin with the new sommelier. At the next table, Richard's abandoned whiskey glass had been cleared away, replaced by a card holder with Maya's note, "Reservations recommended, redemption guaranteed." Then new twist-the-kitchen doors burst open one final time. Marco emerged, carrying an enormous cake shaped like a reservation book, its pages frosted with the names of every staff member and regular who'd supported the transformation. The candles flickered as Kesha led the dining room in a soulful rendition of Happy Birthday, not for a person, but for the restaurant's rebirth. Maya's phone lit up with a breaking news alert. Goldman Sachs launches a $100 million inclusive hospitality fund, names Maya Carter as lead advisor. She silenced it without reading further. Tonight was about more than metrics. As the cake was served, an unexpected figure appeared in the doorway, Richard, clean-shaven and clutching a folder. He waited until Maya noticed him before speaking. "I completed the program," he said, voice rough with emotion. The folder contained certificates, unconscious bias training, cultural competency, inclusive leadership. The room held its breath. Maya stood, gesturing to an empty seat at the family table. "Then, let's talk about your future," she said, not as a victor, but as a mentor. Outside, the neon sign buzzed softly, its glow reflecting in the puddles left by an afternoon rain. Passers-by paused to admire the menu now taped to the window. Not just dishes, but values equity, dignity, second chances, and at the bottom, in small print, no reservations required for redemption. The revolution, it seemed, would be catered. The neon glow of Prime Collective's sign reflected in puddles along the sidewalk as Maya watched the teenage girl disappear into the subway station, her question still hanging in the crisp evening air. The hum of the restaurant behind her clinking glasses, Marco's booming laugh, the jazz trio's rendition of "A Change Is Gonna Come," formed the perfect backdrop to this moment of quiet reckoning. Then, new twist the restaurant door burst open, revealing Richard Whitmore in an unexpected role mentor. He was guiding a group of hospitality students through the dining room, pointing out the subtle redesign choices. The lowered hostess stand for wheelchair access, the QR codes linking to allergen information in 12 languages. "This table," he said, resting a hand where Maya had once stood humiliated, "taught me that real luxury isn't exclusion, it's making people feel seen." Maya's phone buzzed again. David's follow-up text included a photo of the Portland Properties staff already mid-retraining their diversity visibly broader than Meridian Prime's original team. The caption read, "Sent Brittany to lead their hostess training. Full circle." Inside, Carlos, now sporting business school reading glasses, was showing the teenage girl his prototype for an accessibility-friendly reservation system. At the bar, Zara interviewed Mrs. Rodriguez for a new series called Second Chances at the Table. Everywhere Maya looked, the seeds planted that fateful night were flowering in ways she'd never imagined. As she turned to rejoin the celebration, a familiar golden arches bag tumbled down the sidewalk, carried by the wind. Only this time it came to rest against a new public art installation. Outside the restaurant, a sculpture forged from melted-down members-only signs donated by country clubs nationwide. The plaque read, "What we exclude makes us poorer. Who we include makes us whole." The revolution, it seemed, would keep its reservations open indefinitely. And in the window's reflection, Maya caught sight of her own smile, not triumphant, but grateful. The kind that comes not from winning, but from making sure others never have to fight that same battle again. Somewhere in the distance, a saxophone player began a new melody. Inside, someone called for another round of cake. Outside, the city pulsed with endless possibility. The mic, at long last, could be dropped.